Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and welcome to the TvOS show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest and greatest episode of the TvOS show. We definitely want to thank you for tuning in. Also, if you want to become a Patreon supporter and get access to some exclusive content and to get the show live, you can head on over to patreon.com/snobOScast to get all of the details. All right. With that being said, let's jump into this week's show because we have quite a bit to talk about, kicking it off with the Lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. We're going to start it off with the very special announcement that was made. When I got the email, I was like, yay. I was hoping that we got something before the end of the year was out. And the Scary Fast Apple event was announced on this past Tuesday, with the event being held on October
30th.
30th, which
Mhm.
is next Tuesday. Now, this event is a little bit different than events in the past because one, it's a pre-recorded event. It's not an in-person event, meaning that it is going to be streamed on YouTube. If you go over to the YouTube page, you'll see the placeholder, and it's basically saying, "Hey, this is where we're going to be." You can also get the notification. I think you can click like the little ring bell, get the notification for that, or you can head on over to Apple's website to get that info as well. And if you wait long enough on the events page, the Apple logo for the event that says Scary Fast morphs into this little Easter egg that ends up showing as the Finder icon on that you see on all Macs. So that leads me to believe that this is going to be an all Mac event. The other thing of interest with this announcement, typically Apple hosts their events at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. But this time it's at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we won't get to see it over here until around 8. So that is a little bit different than what we are used to. Um, there's been a lot of conversation around what exactly we'll see. A lot of people are thinking it's going to just be all Macs with the new M3 processor. Do you agree? Do you think that's what we're on, or do you think we're gonna have a little bit of something else?
I I really don't want it to be about the Macs. Reason why I say that is it seems like Apple is like heavy-handed with these new silicon processors. You got the
Every year.
M1, you got the M2, you got the M3, like back to back to back, right? Meanwhile, you got iPads sitting around that haven't been refreshed in
Hmm.
whenever. I
AirPods haven't been refreshed in a
Right,
minute.
right, right. You got all these other products I think they could focus on for the holidays, more affordable products
Hmm.
that they could focus on and get that holiday juice, right? But if it's true, of course, if this is all about the Macs, which is fair because the 24-inch iMac hasn't been refreshed since forever. So I get that. But hopefully it's not so, like I mentioned, hopefully not so much focused on Mac that they come out with a new M3 chip because they just came out with the M2 chip, what,
Hmm.
last year? And then year before that, the M1, right?
One. Yeah.
For instance, my middle child, I bought her a M1 MacBook Mini, and then I have the M2 MacBook Pro, and then I think I bought my wife I want to say M1 MacBook Air, and they're just fine. My whole point is the title "Scary Fast" for the Apple event leads you to believe, all right, if it's going to be fast, then they've got to come out with a new processor, and Apple's going to say thrice as fast as this and thrice as fast as that. when these MacBooks now, M1s, M2s,
M2s, they're
are
pretty
crazy
fast.
fast, crazy overpowered for anything. And then you add the Mac Studio, which is like the
Yeah.
super powered M2 Max Ultra, whatever you want to call the chip.
Mhm.
It seems like that's enough, man.
And they're only
Relax.
incremental changes. Even if you look at some of the graphics that they put, sure, it goes above, but it's not like it's exponentially faster or greater. And people just bought these very expensive machines just last year and just the year before.
Hmm.
So you must be going for new users, but I think you may have tapped a lot of your user base with when you announce the silicon chip anyway. It's like, oh my God, we're off Intel. I gotta get this one because this is the first one off of the Intel chip. So you got a bunch of people that bought that. And then you got the second with people like they were kind of waiting to see kind of how the M1 played out. And then when the
Hmm.
M2 came out, I was like, yes, this is even better. So let me get this. With this third iteration, I don't know how many more people you got
Right,
to
right.
buy
And let
these.
me correct myself. I have an M1 Pro. I don't have an M2. So, but even then, like I said, this thing is the fastest
It's so
I've ever
fast
had, and so much so that I don't see myself getting a new MacBook
for a
anytime
minute.
soon. I mean, it's going to be a minute
Yeah.
before I'm convinced to get a faster Mac, right? And I think that's how most people are with computers. It's different for phones because I had the 14 last year and I had the 13 before that, more of a personally speaking, it's more of a personal item that I use way more than I actually use my computer. So, me getting a new phone every year, you can make the same argument. But for computers, people are like, all right, if this suits my needs, I'm not spending
Yeah.
another 20 some $100 on a new Mac just because it's got the M3 that can do what more than my M1 that
Right.
I'm not doing anything new. I'm not doing new stuff.
No.
Maybe, like you mentioned, they're trying to get some new people for whatever reason. But if you've got an M1 or an M2, you know, excuse me for being a little hypocritical, but there's no reason for you to need an M3. You know what I'm saying? Again, I'm not going to clock your pockets or nothing like that. And again, like I said, I get a new
Buy
iPhone
what
every
you
year.
want, but
Right, right. But
mm,
like technically, spec wise, there is
it's
no
not that much of a
reason.
big eight. It's not a
Yeah,
big enough upgrade between particularly the M2 and the M3 and even the M1 and the M2 and the M1 and the M3. It's just not a big enough to me
not enough for people who
performance
already
boost.
have an M1. Now, if you've got an
Right.
Intel or you've got a Chromebook or you've got something else
A
or you're coming
Dell
to
or
Mac for the
something.
first
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
it makes sense for you to get an M3 because that's the new thing that's out. But how many
Right.
people out there, how many more people out there are Apple trying to get or pull from Windows, with this new, if this is the case, an M3 chip? Hopefully we're wrong and they're just refreshing the iMacs and they're giving you a bigger iMac because, like, the colorful iMacs were like 24-inch
Mhm.
screens resolution. Maybe they'll bump that up to 27 or 32 or whatever the case may be, but I still think they could wait
Yeah.
for next year for the
I could see if it
M3.
was like a new iPad Pro with the M3. So if you want to refresh what hasn't been refreshed, like you mentioned, the iMac, or if they're introducing a whole new piece of hardware, then sure. But just to do this, and when I saw the announcement, I was so excited because I was like, okay, maybe we are getting the AirPods refresh that I have been wanting, but I'm seeing on the site that that's not expected until 2024 for the regular AirPods and the AirPods Max, and then 2025 for the Pro line. So it's like, what else are you giving? Because it doesn't seem like I'm surprised that this is their basically one more thing for this year
Right, right. But
is M3. If it is M3 Max, we all could be completely wrong and completely off the trend, but we'll see. I'm
yeah,
hoping that
but
I can watch the event in the air, but I'm not sure. But you should be able to if I can watch other things in the air.
right.
So hopefully so.
But,
Oh,
leave it to Apple. They if one thing, they are a marketing company. They may not
absolutely.
be, in addition to being a hardware company, in addition to being a software, in addition to being a subscription services company, they are a marketing company, and they do a good
Yeah,
job of marketing their products enough so to where people will spend the money. Again, I ain't clocking your pockets, so do you.
absolutely. And we will see on Tuesday what Scary Fast is all about. Next up is software releases. We got a ton of those, from iOS 17.1 to a new watchOS. I'm really excited to talk to you about the watchOS update. We got a Sonoma update, we got a tvOS update, and a HomePod update. So it's going to be interesting to see, how that really turns out, right?
Right,
So,
right. So what people are saying, which makes sense, the fact that this 17.1 should have been iOS 17,
mhm,
because all of the things that they've added, all the things that they fixed, all the things that they've updated, seems like they should have had this ready, or should have polished iOS 17 more before. Otherwise, they would not have had to do all of this stuff that they've done
mhm.
with 17.1, because there's a lot in here.
It's a lot.
They've added stuff like AirDrop to where you can connect via cellular. So if I'm sending Nica a large file, I don't have to stand next to her and wait until the video, transfers to her. I can walk away and it'll automatically switch to cellular and continue to. That seems like a iOS 17 feature, because
Right.
with new iOS 17, you can now walk away and do AirDrop. That seems like something they should have did first before waiting for 17.1. New options for standby mode, which I
Mhm.
guess that's a new product, so they kind of waited to see how people are going to take to it before up doing features and things like
And
that.
you
But
were hoping that they did some tweaks to standby, right? Because you use it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if, yeah, they had that. Yes, you're right. I haven't played with them yet because I haven't went to bed. So, but there are new options to control when the display turns off. Now, again, my personal, quirk was the screen turns off, period, and I have to wave my hand in order to see the time when it should just stay on. iPhone has an always on display. When it's not on the charge, I would assume the always on display would be always on
Always
when it's
on.
charging. And that's not the case. So, which is weird. But anyway, a bunch of new music things. You can favorite playlists. You can change cover art. They're doing better job of recommending songs that you're currently listening to. All that seems like a iOS 17, not a 17.1. So close. It'd be one
Mhm.
thing if all these features kind of came in like 17.5 or whatever the case may be, but it's so close to the original iOS 17. Seems like they just hurry up and ship and then
Yeah,
figure it out later.
it sounds like what a lot of times happens in software development is
Mhm,
it's not quite ready, it's not fully baked, it didn't pass all of the final tests,
mhm,
so they decided to stash those,
mhm.
and go with the build that was the most solid, the build
Right,
that wasn't breaking, and the build that gave them the best result, and it was like, "Oh, we'll just do it in an update." And instead of
right.
doing it in an update, it was like, "Wait a minute, let's do it in a dot one, let's do it in the next version and put a whole bunch of stuff." And it seems like we're just giving our customers all these new things. It's
Mhm,
like you said, Apple has now morphed into a marketing company, and it's how you spin it. How are you going to spin this? Because the three biggest things that came out of this 17.1 is airdrop, standby, and music. And a
mhm.
lot of these things look like it's something that should have went into 17.
Right, right, right. And there's a couple other things. Most of his bug fixes. They still haven't fixed one of them. The one, a couple of, so let's get personal here. A couple of gripes that I have right now. I wanted the ability to be able to see, and I've said this before. I'll say it again. I want to be able to see any reminders that I create that have expirations. I
Mhm.
want to be able to see those on the calendar. They give me an option to where it says add this reminder to the calendar. So when I'm going through my calendar, and I'm looking at all the things on the dates, all the schedules, all events, I can also see some of my reminders. That seems like something that why is not Apple not doing that, right?
Mhm.
But that's personal, right? Another one as it relates to 17.1, specifically, Apple has added an option to choose a specific album to use with Shuffle on the lock screen.
Mhm.
Prior to that, you couldn't choose a specific album. They had suggestions for you. You could use featured items, things that look good on the actual lock screen, and individual pictures. I couldn't choose a whole album. Like, for instance, when I downloaded 17.1, first thing I did was added my favorites because there are pictures that I favorited over the years
Mhm.
and I want them to show up as lock screen images, right? So I did that, but it's still missing. And I don't know if this is a bug or what, but you can also choose faces
Mhm.
on the lock screen.
Mhm.
And I've gone through the years, I've made sure my wife, my kids have all been identified in my photos album. So when I go in a search, I can search my daughter and all the pictures of my daughter
With
show up
her.
because I've
Mhm.
painstakingly taken the time to add their
Add
faces.
her name to
Right.
the face.
Exactly. Right. But the problem I'm having, this is a super, super specific one, is I can select my wife, I can select my daughters, but I can't select my son. And I don't know if that's
Hmm.
a bug. And while I'm talking, I'm kind of working it out in my head. I'm thinking, well,
Mhm.
maybe because he's underage,
Mm-mm.
he's only 6. So maybe they are not letting me select him. But I've got other babies and other
Yeah.
baby faces and people that show up randomly in my photos that I can select as faces for my lock screen, but I can't
Mhm.
select my son. Maybe it's because we have the same name. I don't know what it is, but it's a
Yeah.
weird bug to where I can't add the faces that I want as a
They
lock
won't let
screen.
little dude be great.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And then the other one that I'm recently having is and like you said, we're going to talk about it with the watchOS update. Is this new feature? Not new feature, but when I am playing music, right? I can open up the watch on my phone and like
Mhm.
control the music on my phone from my
Mhm.
watch. There's a feature in the Apple Watch that after 2 minutes or immediately or whatever the case may be, once I've turned on the music app on my watch, after two
Mhm.
minutes, it's supposed to go back to the clock because I don't want to always, when I'm playing music, I may or may not always want to see the music on my watch. I want to be able to tell time. That's why I bought a watch so I can look at the time.
Mhm.
But for whatever reason, it's a weird quirk to where when I'm playing music or I'm listening to a podcast, it won't go back to the watch face after 2 minutes. And I've
Really?
played around with it.
And this is with the new
It's a
one?
new. I've only had this problem since watchOS, what, 9? Is that what we're on? WatchOS 9? What
10.
are we on right now?
We're on
10?
10.
WatchOS 10. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm like, some of these things that they've done in 17.1, it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice, 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 nice. But what about these things? And that's just me being picky and me being personal. But, if we're talking about, all these things that, making the iOS 17 stable and then adding features as updates and spinning it as, oh, look at these new features we've so nicely given to you. It's like, all right, well, there's still some things that I need y'all to work on
There's
personally.
still a couple of things that I would like for you to address.
Mhm.
Before we move on, I did want to bring up that in addition to some of the improvements and changes that were done, we'll put the link in the show notes that gives a full rundown because we didn't hit all of them. I think the other thing to note is there were 18 security flaws that were fixed in this 17.1
Wow.
release. And that's a lot. And in this article from 9 to 5 Mac, they go through and list which of the vulnerabilities they are, and it gives you a description, even the impact. So they went and there's a database you can go online and look up the different CVEs, and it gives you the rundown. But the fact that there were 18 different security flaws that range from Find My, contacts, some kernel issues, some mail issues, issues with photos. So
In
it's
France, the phones was getting hot, and
right.
or not hot. They were emitting too much radiation,
Whoop.
and France was like, "Yo, yo, yo, y'all need
You
to
need to
fix
fix
this."
this.
Right, right. So Apple, like you said, patched a bug to where it reduced the amount of radiation that made it acceptable standards according to France. So yeah,
Yeah. So that's like, yeah. So that's definitely, again, we always put a link in the show notes. If you are interested in the specifics behind the different vulnerabilities, they are listed there, what the impact is, what the actual issue is, gives you lots of details. If you're kind of a cyber and security kind of geek, you can kind of geek out to some of that. All right. The next up, watchOS uh 10.1
10.1. Yep.
is out, and I think probably the biggest highlight is the double pinch
Double
for
tap.
the new chip, the double tap. Yep,
Mhm.
for the new watch series 9.
And the Ultra
Um
2.
and the Ultra 2, that's right.
Mhm.
So that is also out there. Give me 1 second. Let me switch my screen. So yeah, so Name Drop is now on watchOS 10.1. Like I
Mhm.
mentioned, double tap, that gesture is now on watchOS 10.1. So those are the two biggest things I can tell that
That's it.
came.
Ain't nothing else.
And Brother Tech, you did get the Series 9. Have
Mhm.
you updated to the watchOS 10.1?
Yes, I have, and I have already played with the double tap gesture, and it works. I mean, it works good. It works so well that I'm figuring out how do they get it to work? Because is it my nerves, pulsating when I tap my fingers together? What is it?
Like, how does it know?
Yeah, how does it
Have you
know?
tried different fingers?
No, I haven't tried different fingers, but
Okay.
I've only tried the two fingers just to see how well it works. Am I going
Mm.
to am I to quadruple tap for it to work? What am I gonna do? And it's like,
How accurate
very
is it going to be? That
yeah,
was my
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. No, it actually works pretty perfect. So much so it's scary perfect. It's like, how does
Mm,
this actually work? But like you said, I haven't tried clapping yet. I haven't tried my thumb and my middle finger or ring finger or pinky finger or anything like
mhm,
that. But I mean, the thing works. And for those who don't know, for instance, like I said, if I'm playing music on my phone and I open the music app and I'm able to control the music on my watch, or if I'm just listening to music straight from my watch and my
mhm,
AirPods, I can take my two fingers with this feature, with the double tap feature enabled. I can double tap my index finger and my thumb. And if I'm listening to music, it'll pause it and then play it again. Or you can go in and change the settings to where it skips. So if I'm listening to music and I double tap, it'll skip to the next song. You can actually have that option in there. If you other things you could do, like I mentioned, you can stop a timer. So if I'm, for instance, this would be perfect for me when I'm exercising, and I set a timer. Instead of having to stop what I'm doing to take my hand over to stop the timer, on one hand, I can double tap with my fingers and stop the music, stop the timer. I can snooze an alarm, answer and end a phone call. So those are very handy, common things that people do all the time. That now you don't need two hands rather, to
mhm.
do on your watch. Because I remember when the Apple Watch first came out, people was like, "Oh man, if I'm holding something and I got to do something, I don't." The watch is like a two-handed thing. I can't
Mhm.
take The fingers that my watch is on, I can't bend those back to touch the screen, you know. And if I'm holding something, I can't really reach over. So this is, to me, this double tap feature is Apple's answer to being able to use the watch with one hand to do
Mhm.
some common features, right?
Right.
Um, and like I said, it works so well that it's like, man, congrats to y'all to get that to work, because that's next level stuff, right?
See,
And then the
now you're
other
making me
only
want
other
to
thing
get it.
is, yeah, and then the only other thing is the name drop. So instead of having to use my phone to share my contact information,
Mhm.
quickly I can get on my watch and then just put my somebody else's watch phone next to my watch, and it can transfer the contact information as well. And the same thing with the watch. I can select the email or my phone number or whatever the case may be to that goes over to the person when I'm sharing the contact information to.
And see, I was hoping to buy some new AirPod Maxes or maybe a new iPad, but I haven't been able to buy anything. So now I guess that maybe frees me up to get the Series 9 because I was kind of on the fence about it.
Well, I don't know if spending, $300-400 to be able to pinch my fingers together again, spend your money however you want to. I don't know if that alone is enough of a feature. But yes, I'm going to get it. I would definitely wait and see if Apple has some surprises up their sleeves for what they announce next week. But
Yeah.
no, it's
Well, I'm
definitely
going on vacation next week, so
okay.
it won't be I won't be able to buy anything until I
Okay, all
get
right.
back
But
from that.
again,
So
that feature is definitely a dope feature that I could see
yeah,
a lot of people using. But like I mentioned at the top, you got to have the Series 9
9. Yep.
or the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Both of those just came out last month.
And it's
So
all because of the new chip that they have in those watches that allows
exactly.
you to do that feature.
Right, right.
Next up is Sonoma. So Sonoma got an update as well. Um, Again, all of these are available for you to download. Um, how much did we get with
A whole bunch of
macOS?
nothing. Nothing really happened. They fixed some bugs, some security updates, expanded some stuff in music to include like songs, albums, and playlists, so you can filter them in your library. Um, weird stuff like Apple warranty status for Mac, AirPods, and Beats headphones and earbuds are now available in system settings. So if I open up the system settings on my Mac, I can see Apple warranty status for not just my Mac, but for AirPods and anything connected to my Mac, sans my phone, right? So if I've got AirPods or whatever, I can see the warranty status for those. And then location services bug and an issue that may prevent encrypted external drives from mounting. So if you've got an external drive and you've encrypted it with a password, this new macOS Sonoma 14.1 will enable you to mount that drive, and then it'll ask you for the password to actually decrypt the drive. I didn't even notice this.
What?
Um, I have an encrypted drive that I plug into my Mac, and it works just fine. So maybe there were some people who were having issues with those drives, but again, I didn't have any problem with it, so I never even noticed it.
And it sounds like again, this is stuff that should have went in 14, but wasn't quite ready. So they just piled it over to 14.1.
But even
Uh,
these tweaks and these little fixes and these little bugs, this
mhm.
is what I would expect from a dot one. But with iOS 17.1, there was like long laundry list of new features. And it's like, well, y'all should have, worked a little bit harder and put that in 17, and
I
then do the
think,
little fixes for
yeah,
17.1.
and I think all of these other incremental fixes for all of the other releases outside of iOS 8, I think they're just padding because the
Hmm.
big thing is iOS 17.1. But
Hmm.
they didn't want to look like we really, messed up and didn't meet our deliverables on 17. So now we got to add in all this other stuff to make it seem like, oh yeah, we were working on all these other things. So yeah, we just did a dot one for all of them
Hmm.
when really it's like you said, it's Apple's a marketing company. So they had to, do their magic to make sure that the folks were getting what they expect. All right. tvOS. That got a refresh as well, which was quite minor. Additionally,
The only thing I noticed is the control center looks a little bit more polished. It reminds me of the iOS control center. You know, when you swipe down from the right and
mhm,
you can turn on the flashlight, you can change your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, stuff like that. The control center on tvOS 17.1 looks like that. Well,
yeah,
not like that. It reminds me of that. So they've like, what's the word? They've kind of restyled, for lack of a
yeah.
better term, to where it
And
looks more
basically,
vibrant.
the article from Apple Insider says that
Mhm,
it renewed the control center,
mhm.
but it also did some tweaks to Apple Fitness Plus. And similar to what I just said about the other updates, it seems like these are just things that they were like, yeah, let's throw this into to kind of beef up all the things that we are releasing with iOS 17.1. All right. Apple HomePod and HomePod Mini, they got a little bit more of update than some of the other products that we talked about. It's a feature called Enhanced Dialogue that basically gives the volume a bit of a kick for voices that are spoken. So it makes it a little bit easier for conversations um, to, I guess, to be heard. They're a little.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
it's up some.
we've all watched movies to where the people are talking, and it's like, "Why are you mumbling? What are you saying?" You
Why
know?
are you lower, but you're not?
Right, right. Then they go to the next scene, and the speakers blow your doors off because
You
you
got
have
to
to
turn
turn
the
it up so
volume all the way back
loud.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So this enhanced dialogue kind of helps hear the dialogue more clear without you necessarily having to crank up your volume.
Not tweaking up and down on the volume. Yeah, so that is the biggest thing with the HomePods and
And then that's
the
only if
HomePod Minis.
you use the HomePods as TV speakers, which
Mhm.
I don't think most people do. They just use it as a Siri around the house.
I use mine as a speaker, not for TV, but mostly
Right,
for music. Yeah,
right.
yeah. And I think that is it on the updates, unless I missed one. But I
Nope.
think that was
That's it.
pretty
That's it.
much it on those. Yeah, so again, all the updates are available now. If you go into your settings, and I think it's typically under general, and your software update, if you have automatic updates turned on, it will do the update typically when it's plugged into power. For me, most of the time it happens overnight. Or if you want to do it ad hoc and go ahead and kick it off, do that. But there are a lot of updates to be doing if you're like Terrance and I and have pretty much all these devices and have to update all of these and multiples of them in Terrance's case because he has a whole Apple family to
Yeah, so the
to consider.
Apple TVs typically do a good job of updating overnight, and I just look up and it works.
Mhm.
iPhones and watches are the ones to where it's like, all right, when are you gonna actually update? When are you gonna actually I can't wait. I'm gonna
I'm
update
waiting. I'm
now.
waiting.
Right, right, right. Especially with my family, like you mentioned, I'll normally send a text message and say, "All right, go update your devices," and they always come back with, "I got it set up to where it does it overnight," and then a week later, I'm like, "All right, well, you got to do this and that." And that. My phone don't do that, and it's like because you haven't done the update,
Right.
because Apple's like, "Well, we'll get to it when we get to
We'll
it."
get to you. You're in your, customer number 35,827,012.
Right. Hmm.
We'll get to you. All right. So happy updating on all of your devices. So these services, they are going to
They keep
kill
playing.
us by
Keep on playing.
1,000 incremental increases. And
Hmm.
it's gotten to the point where it's like, look,
I'm gonna start turning stuff off.
I'm gonna start canceling some of these subscriptions. I was talking to a friend and I was like, because I still have regular cable because I like to see what's going on real time.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like, some of the stuff, I was like, I gotta get rid of some of these services. And I was like, well, I really don't even watch ESPN Plus, so I can do that. But I have the bundle
Hmm.
of Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus. So
Hmm.
I can't really get rid of one of those, but then you have all the other ones as well. All
Netflix
that to
went
say,
up. Hmm.
that Apple has hiked up the prices of their service subscriptions. Um, it includes, the individuals, if you have like, just Apple Music, or if you just have, iCloud, if you pay for the extra storage or whatever the case may be, all the way up to if you have one of the Apple One bundles.
Mm.
So, I think the percentage I saw is like the increase is like 40%.
Hmm.
So, for Apple One bundle, it has tiers. So the lowest tier used to be $16.95 per month. It goes up $3 to $19.95 per month. If you have the family tier of Apple One, it goes from $22.95 up to $25.95. And they have the premier tier that goes up from $32.95 to $37.95. So that's a whole $5. Where the
Hmm.
other one's like 3, for the premier tier, it's going up a whole 5.
Yep.
Brother
Yep.
Jay, what are you doing?
My family has the top tier family one. Now we got to pay $38. And it's like, all right, two things are gonna happen. I'm gonna be uh squeezing every penny out of this Apple One thing. It means I need to start reading books, start reading newspapers with the News Plus, because with the Apple One tier, you get music, you get books, you get news, you get
Fitness.
fitness, you get the iCloud, and I use iCloud, of course. I use, the fitness, not so much so more, but now it's like, all right, I'm about to, you know, get back into using Apple Fitness, so it's going to either force me to use every single cent, and I'm gonna have to decide something else got to get cut. If not,
Yeah.
Apple One itself, I may drop down to another tier, because the main reason I got the Apple One tier is because of the 2 terabytes of iCloud storage. And then I use to hide my email. I use
Hmm.
a lot of the stuff personally. Family, not so much, but I, yeah,
But
I tend to use it, but still, $5 hike to almost $40 a month.
$40.
Right. On top of, like I mentioned, Netflix has gone up. Um,
Everybody.
it
Hulu's gone up.
yeah,
Disney
it's like
Plus went up. And they're
you
all going up at the same time.
because they've got us. They've got
Yeah.
us.
They
And
got
it's
us on the
like,
hook. Everybody got a plus.
oh yeah, yeah. And it's hard, they get you hooked. I mean, that's what drug dealers do. They
And then
get you
it's like,
hooked on
oh,
it.
it's only $3. Oh, it's only
Right.
$2. But when you
Hmm.
start, for
Yep.
instance, Apple TV Plus, because I mentioned separate services are going up too. Apple TV Plus used to be $6.99. Guess what, folks? It is now $9.99. Apple News Plus, $9.99 up to $12.99. And even the little arcade used to be $4.99. It is now $6.99.
Yeah. So I mean, people are going to start making life decisions.
Yeah.
And it's like, y'all only have yourselves to blame, because y'all, I don't know if it's capitalism, I don't know if it's inflation or this quote unquote so-called inflation, that they're using this inflation as an excuse to jack
Mhm.
up prices. But either way, it's going to, you mentioned that you still have cable, and it's
Mhm.
going to get back around to where people
Same
are going
price
to
as
be like,
cable.
forget Disney Plus, forget Netflix, Paramount, Peacock. I'm just going to go back to cable because that's like $100
Basic
right
cable.
now, and it gives me regular TV, and I just have to be
And I don't have to
okay.
wait a day to see stuff. I can see it real
Right.
time again.
And I just had to be okay with not watching the new Squid Games or the
Yeah.
new Game of Thrones, because
Or people are gonna
everybody,
be like, I'm only keeping one movie. I'm only going to do Netflix or Hulu
or Disney
or
Plus. Hmm.
Disney. I'm only doing one.
Right.
So y'all better woo me with this content, to figure out,
Which is
who's gonna
lackluster as
yeah.
of late. Not counting the writers and the actor strike. I mean, yes, the content has been kind of few and far between. But even after that, this is like, I was talking to some people earlier this week, and I was like, um, y'all are just like these reality shows, and it's just like, not only are you just like the Love Is Blind, for instance, Netflix, Love Is Blind, it's like it's kind of jumped the shark, because everybody tuned into these things, and they're like, all right, how can we milk that, how can we milk that, instead of how can we make actual good content, right? Very few and far between are people on social media, tweeting and talking about this next big thing that has came out recently. It's been
Mhm.
months or years since like something that everybody
Had us
circles
glued
around.
to. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Like I said, to where people are gonna be like, yeah, nah, I'm
I'm
cool.
good. And with that, that is going to wrap up the lowdown. We're going to head on over to second string where we talk all other tech. So this week, a little bit different than some of the things that we normally cover in second string. I thought this was an interesting concept that can do some good, but also at the same time, I think it may also, enter in, some potential for people to get over. So the White House announced, I believe it was yesterday, meaning Tuesday, that they are going to have 31 tech hubs all across the United States, and in some places that you wouldn't typically expect. Normally this type of thing you would expect in Texas or
Hmm.
in California or in
Hmm.
Georgia or in New York. But these are tech hubs that are going to be in places like Wyoming and Idaho and Puerto Rico as well, which I'm super excited about Puerto Rico because I know that they normally get the short end of the stick when it comes to government grants. But it's going to include tech hubs for innovation, not just on your typical tech sector, meaning, consumer tech
Computers,
like
startups, and
phones.
apps.
Right. This is
Right.
going to be like aerospace, mass timber, microfluidics. So I think it's one of those things to get the whole range of STEM, because people talk about STEM and you typically only think about, like I said, the consumer tech
Developers.
aspect of it and
Mhm.
not necessarily the scientific aspect of it. So this is going to bring, like I said, 32, it'll be 31 hubs, and it's going to go across 32 different states, including Puerto Rico. And, I think this is a good thing. And this was a part of the Chips and Science Act that the president signed back in August of last year. And I think, the idea of this is great. The mechanics behind it, I'm interested to see, because I think the total I saw was like 500 million that they are going to distribute. So it's like, is it going to be, can anybody apply for these grants? Is it specifically through universities? Because the three that are highlighted in the story from Geek Wire, it talks about three that are in like the Pacific Northwest. So that's like Washington, Oregon, up kind of like in that top part. Basically the whole left coast minus California.
Where
That's what you're
nobody
thinking of.
lives. Well, people live up in Oregon. People live in Spokane, Washington, I
Yeah,
suppose. But
Seattle, all those places.
yeah, but
But
like you said, it's going against the grain of where you would think tech hubs would
right,
be. Like you
right.
mentioned, California, Georgia, Nashville is becoming a tech hub. Detroit is trying to become a tech hub, and then of course New York, and then of course Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it is a benefit that they are putting them in non-typical places, and it's non-typical tech. Like you mentioned, it'll be interesting to see how these grants are doled out because they are partnered with,
Universities, it
universities.
looks like.
Gonzaga, for example, personally speaking, they don't need no more money. Why they get more money? Oregon State versus,
If it's some smaller universities, if you're gonna
right,
pick these, you know,
monstrosities already.
non-traditional
Yeah.
tech places, go with some of the non-traditional schools as well.
Exactly, exactly. And as dope as it not being traditional tech, because we're getting tired of developers and we're getting tired of coders, and it's kind of
Wait a
not
minute
necessarily run
now,
its
you're trying to
course.
put me out of work.
Well, no, well, what I'm saying, the point I was getting to was, introduce us to new stuff, right?
Yeah.
Tech ain't just being a coder. You got
Yeah.
aerospace, like you mentioned, timber, wood. There's tech behind that. So
When I was in high school, I live in a small town, and some of the students went to the paper mill. It
mhm,
employs a ton of people, one of the biggest, employers in our town. But we went on the engineering side of it. So I didn't even realize that paper was that big of a deal. So we talked with some of the paper engineers, how they get in the wood and process the paper, and it's different aspects to it to create different types of paper from different. It was like a whole thing. It smelled horrible, but I was like, this is actually kind of interesting because I didn't even think about the technology behind creating paper.
right. And the point I was getting to is as far as the rollout, how much awareness is going to be rolled up into this, because it's one thing to just have a mass timber tech hub, in Oregon State University, but how am I going to know about that? Do I need to go on GeekWire? How many people have heard of GeekWire, right? How is the our US government going to spread awareness to this, to where, like you mentioned, if anybody can apply and anybody can get these grants to go to these schools or partner with these hubs or whatever the case may be, who's going to receive the marketing and advertising of that? Is it just going to be, people who they think is going to be interested in? Is that going to be sectored off into certain areas and not everybody's going to be able to see this? Is somebody from the inner city in Nashville going to be able to be like, oh, you know what? I'd be interested in microfluidics. Let me look into that. How are they going to know about that?
So the answer to that is no. So there's a link in the article that leads to the whitehouse.gov that basically lays out the program, and they already done picked the people who are going to do the things.
No, right. Okay. So
So
there's that.
it's not like this $500 million you can apply for it. It's already
Spent.
spent and allocated to the different designations, as they call them. So one
Mhm.
is enabling safe and effective autonomous systems. So it's something in Tulsa, something in Rhode Island, something in Montana, and it lists the companies that are doing this already.
Mhm.
So the people are already set. So this is basically just an announcement that
Right.
there are already people doing this and that the money has already been allocated to said people. Now, how
Mhm.
did these places find out about it? I would like to know.
Right.
And I would like to know the vetting process
Right.
and the bidding process and
Mhm.
who got chose to do this. Um, that would be interesting. And it will also be interesting to see who's behind these companies and to
Mhm.
see what the demographics are
I mean, we know
behind
these are
each of these
rhetorical
companies.
questions, but continue.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, everybody's getting, that. But yeah, I'm looking Baltimore, I see Birmingham, I see Philly, Louisiana, South Carolina, South Florida. So it is spread out, and it's interesting. I don't see anything so far from Georgia on here.
Okay. All right.
I see Texas, I see New York. Um, I don't even think I saw anything from Cali unless I missed it. So very interesting. Very interesting. So we'll see how that kind of I guess pans out.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, how they spread awareness about it. If I'm a kid in high school looking for my college and or next career, how am I going to
Mhm.
find out about, this IFAB tech hub in the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, aimed to scale precision fermentation to convert underutilized corn feedstocks into high value customized alternative proteins, food ingredients, materials, chemicals, and more. How me from, Decatur, Georgia, going to find out about this, is
Yeah.
one thing to announce it. You got to let people know it's out there so they can take advantage.
Right. For sure. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. And honestly, the metrics behind it, how do they calculate success? How do they calculate, yes, we were wise to invest money with you. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. That's going to wrap it up for second string. We're going to head on over into for the culture, where we talk all things socially related, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be in the media, or just something that's just of interest to us in general. So this week, I wanted to go a little bit positive. Um, and when I saw this, I was like, this is actually perfect. Especially with student loan payments resuming this month
Hmm.
after being paused for 3 years. And the president, put forth a plan that was blocked by the Republican House. So now those people who had a 3-year break of not paying student loans, um, it it's back, and they have to make those decisions about paying these loans back. But fortunately for Morehouse College, right here in Atlanta in the West End, about 3,000 former students are going to be getting letters in the mail saying that their college debt has been cleared. About 27, just over 27, like I said, 2,777 former students from the Black Male College in Atlanta. They owed about almost 10 million. It's like 9.7 million through the fall term of 2020. They saying some accounts go as far back as decades. So this isn't just new students who are getting their debt cleared. It's students spanning a
Hmm.
wide dearth of time. And this company called Debt Collective, which is a union of debtors, um, in collaboration with a nonprofit called the Rolling Jubilee Fund, bought out the debt. So now these nearly 3,000 students have their debt wiped away.
Yep, yep,
And
absolutely. Yep. So, uh, for those who don't remember, um, which I don't want to make it worse, but Robert F. Smith,
mhm,
like you mentioned earlier, these are students who have since graduated and gone on to live their lives, saddled with this debt, now it's been paid off. A couple years ago, Robert F. Smith, a
mhm,
black
the
billionaire,
billionaire.
yeah, he spoke at the Morehouse commencement
Mhm.
and told all of the graduating students that all of their, loan debts had been paid off. Hopefully, that's still the case because fast forward to now, Robert S. Smith has been caught up in some tax evasion scandal.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, um, let me see if I can give you like uh a real quick highlight here. Uh
Hopefully that debt got cleared before
yeah,
his problems.
yeah. All that to say,
And if not, maybe this will pick up the slack.
yeah. Um, so yeah, he got caught up in some tax stuff and some let me see. Let me see if I can read this. When private equity billionaire Robert Smith settled tax fraud charges in late 2020, he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors on related cases, but he won't ever need to testify in court because two former Smith associates have died on the eaves of their respective trials.
Wait
So
a
yeah,
minute.
yeah, there's
That
a whole
got a
lot of
little
going on right there. So all that to
suspect.
say, all the way around the world to say, hopefully, the kids who got their, student loans paid off as they graduated, hopefully they got that done before all this stuff came out, but that's following, well, this new news to where these previous grads, their college debts have been wiped away. That follows, the recent college grads. So hopefully, it's all good news, and these things come to fruition because you always hear about somebody's debt, student loans debt being paid. You always
Mm.
hear about somebody making this mass donation, but you never really like with the previous story.
It's the
What are the
follow through. We're
details?
all happy when you first hear it, but it's
Yeah,
like,
how do
does it
you
really come to fruition?
Right. Have they spoken to any of these kids? And have they been able to tell their story about how, stressed they were, or how are they going to pay their student loan debts
Mhm.
off? And then, this miracle, this, good person, whatever the case may be, philanthropist, whatever you want to call them, comes through and does this, where are they now? That's what
Mhm.
that's kind of the end story I'm looking for, because we always hear about these and then, we go on to the next story, but
Mhm.
did it ever work, right? Outside of the
Mhm.
announcement. The announcement worked, but did it actually execute? Did somebody actually get their loans paid off?
Yeah. And honestly, the kids who, well, I won't say kids, the young men who had that paid off, they probably as happy as gone. It's like, look, I don't need to talk about it. I got it. I don't need people too much about business like that anyway. But in any event, with this nonprofit Rolling Jubilee Fund, it's a 501c4. I'm not sure what the difference is between a C3 and a C4, but it's a 501c4. They were able to give um, all these students, a little bit of breathing room and peace of mind to know that they won't have this debt forever and they don't have to keep paying it. That it's clear for them. So a little bit of good news on this Wednesday evening that we can talk about. That relief has come to these students, and awesome, awesome, awesome for them. Next up, we have the hookup for our tech tip of the week. Brother Tech, what do we have going on this week in our tech tip?
Yeah. So basically, I was doing wrote a post on, I think it was Facebook or something like that. And I'd
Mhm,
already wrote it out and posted it, but there was a actually, if you are a member of our Snobbish community, I did a post about Brian McKnight. So you'll have to be a member of the Snobbish community to actually get the back end story of that. But I posted this story on Facebook about, all the stuff Brian McKnight is going through. And I wanted to go in and edit it because I wanted to capitalize like an important part of the story, right? And initially, I was going to erase that line and then turn on my caps lock and then type it out again, all in caps. But I
mm,
was like, all right, there's got to be a way to be able to switch this from lowercase to uppercase. So that's my hookup for the week. There is a way to change the case of text on a Mac. And basically, what you do is you highlight the text that is lowercase or conversely uppercase. You right click on the text, and there will be a options menu. Click on transformations, and then you click on make uppercase. So everything you highlighted, once you click on transformations and make uppercase, everything is lowercase in the highlight will be uppercase. And then conversely, like I mentioned, if something's in uppercase in all caps and you want to drop it back down to lowercase, you can do the same thing with this feature. And you can do a couple other things like change numbers, a couple other options with this transformations. So if you don't want to go through and edit uppercase and lowercase individually, you can actually highlight text. And then with this transformations feature, you can change that text on the fly. Again, like I said, without having to type it all over again, for the extra emphasis.
Nice. That's very interesting to know. The best things come out of necessity. So,
Well, that's how most of my hookups come out of. I'm doing something and I need to figure something out, and I figure it out. I'm like, you know what? Maybe some other people need to know this too.
right. So that is going to wrap up the show for this week. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Again, Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure. You can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BrothaTech. And a quick another addition, like Nica mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned it in the regular show or not, but you're going to be out next
Yes.
week.
And the
Um,
following week.
and the following week, I've got a guest lined
Oh,
up
nice.
for next week. Maybe not. Maybe the week after that, we may take a break. But since the this new Apple event has been announced for Halloween Eve, what is it? All Hallows Eve, I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
so the following day is when we normally do the SnobOS podcast. So I'm going to no, it's 2 days after that because it's 31st. Yeah. Anyway, that week, I'm gonna have a guest on the show, so definitely stay tuned. We'll, keep the party going, and I got a nice guest lined up. So basically,
Nice.
stay tuned for that.
Awesome. And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere. And as Terrance mentioned, during the announcement on next Tuesday, I will actually be in the air over some water, heading far, far away, which I'm really looking forward to. I'll be gone for a couple of weeks, gallivanting around Europe for a bit. So I know that Brother Tech got y'all covered on the news front, and I'm excited to see who the guest is. I'm sure you guys are too. All right. To comment, to share, to connect, to support our show, you can go on over to snoboscast.com to get all of the details. And with that, I will see you in 2 weeks. And Brother Tech will be back with you next week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a good one.
Peace.
Thanks, everybody.